This has massive implications for the New England Patriots as a new report reveals some significant updates on injury designations for Sunday's game against Miami. Also, a new defensive play caller for this upcoming week as well. We'll tell you all about it here today on Patriots Digest. We appreciate you tuning in to today's show. Have so much to discuss, and as always, we hope you're having a great day on this Friday. If you want to stick around, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join the over 1,000 people who have subscribed over the past month. I promise you, you won't regret it. Daily Patriots content telling you exactly stuff like this with all the injury news. Speaking of which, let's get right into it with the biggest news of them all. Adam Schefter reporting that Christian Gonzalez will be out for a second straight week due to his hamstring injury, per head coach Mike Vrable. He sustained an injury on July 28th and has not practiced since with that hamstring. It's a little bit of a concerning factor now heading into week 2 that he has not practiced since July 28th. I mentioned this last week, but Christian Gonzalez is arguably one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL, and he is a key piece to this New England defense, especially when you talk about how much money and effort and time and even hiring Mike Vrable was put into this defensive staff. And without him, it really downplays it in some ways. Now, Carlton Davis will be fine out there, and he'll have to take on Tyreek Hill this week, but it's still a tough blow for sure, especially when earlier this week you did release a cornerback as well, so that depth factor is pretty low. I'd have to expect our 2 practice squad call-ups for this week will probably be at least 1 cornerback slash safety, just to have a little bit more depth in that secondary. It's also expected that sometimes the safeties will play in the cornerback. However, that we saw last week that Jalen Hawkins would play in that cornerback role every now and then, so that's something to note as well. But a tough blow and a little bit concerning, but I want him to be more than healthy before he comes back. That's way more important to me than getting him out there and playing against Miami in week 2 when we're already 0-1. Like, the health and safety and getting him back fully healthy and long term is way more important. That's not the only injury update we got. We have the full injury designation list for this upcoming weekend's game against the Miami Dolphins. Evan Lazar has the report saying Gonzalez, obviously we know, is out. But also, Keon White, who has had an illness all week, won't play on Sunday as well. Obviously, this is an unspecified illness. Hopefully, he is going to be able and back next week. It sounds like it's nothing serious, but they're just not ready and willing to play him as he hasn't practiced all week this week. So going to let him sit out there on Sunday, so a couple of interesting placements for that. Anthony Jennings will also be a part of that plan. And then 2 questionable players for this week, Morgan Moses and Marte Mapu. Of those 2, though, I'm a bit more concerned about Moses' availability, specifically because when Vrabel mentioned Moses, he immediately mentioned the backup plan and what would happen if he is unable to play this upcoming Sunday in Miami. Sounds like Mapu should be able to go, but they're going to label him as questionable. Not doubtful, but questionable for both of those parties. With that being said, though, lots of defensive injuries, obviously. Those are all for, defensive side of the ball, but we look at this as well. If you don't know, the Patriots have been without defensive coordinator Tyrell Williams pretty much the entire week, as he's been away from the team for unspecified health reasons. Tyrell had a very big health scare this offseason OTA training camp area. It's seemingly, or it has been reported at least, that is not related to this current unspecified health reason. But obviously, hopefully he can be back and ready to go for next week. But as of right now, Mike Vrabel says that the inside linebackers coach, Zak Kuhr, will call defensive plays on Sunday. The good thing with that, and we'll tell you more about it, but he has really good experience because when Tyrell Williams was out earlier in the offseason during OTA's training camp, it was Zak Kuhr who was, effectively calling plays when they were obviously working. Obviously, it's different when you're in training camp and all that. But kind of want to go more in depth here on the injuries across the board. We'll start first with the report coming from Oliver Thomas of Pat's Pulpit saying, quote, "This is about Keon White. White played 29 snaps off the defensive edges in week 1 and had a hand in a pair of tackles. The former number 46 overall pick is now set to miss his first game since his rookie year. That could lead to veteran outside linebacker Anthony Jennings having a Sunday role after beginning the 2025 season as a healthy inactive." If you don't know about Anthony Jennings, he was actually scheduled, or at least on the trade market at one point. They ended up not getting a trade done. Him and Kyle Duggar were both there. We obviously know what happened with Duggar. But for right now, Jennings is looking like probably a good thing he kept him because he's going to be in a starting role. Also, Elijah Ponder, a UDFA we talked about on this channel, very underrated, very athletic guy, could also be out there for a couple plays as well. So I'm honestly kind of excited to see if we can let Ponder play a couple of it. A little bit more about Christian Gonzalez and the more concerning part for him, saying, quote, as for Gonzalez in the secondary, he is now set to miss his second in a row. The former number 17 overall pick and reigning second-team All-Pro has been a non-participant since his hamstring injury arose during first padded practice of training camp, that of course being on July 28th. I'm not ready to sound the alarm on Christian Gonzalez just yet, but I really, really want to see him at least be limited, at least have some pads on in some aspect next week in practice. He didn't have to play in week 3, but I want to see him out there practicing because we're going on potentially if it's next week, we're about to hit like 2 months of him not practicing. Looking at the injury report, technically I don't have our Fridays in here just yet. They'll be put on the website soon, but we know them from what based on Mike Vrable said. Couple of good news behind all this. Christian Barrymore, who was not injured, he just missed the first practice. He was limited on Thursday. Seems like he'll be a full participant on Friday. Today, we obviously know Christian Gonzalez, but Harold Landry, he did not practice on Wednesday. I was a little bit concerned about him. Had limited practice yesterday, but Landry seems to be full go today and effectively off the injury report. Now, you're not technically off because you were listed on earlier, but that's a big thing for me. Also, Keyshawn Boutte, he was listed as a full participant today, so he'll be good to go as well. He was your leading receiver in week 1 with over 100 yards. Hopefully, he'll have even more of the same this upcoming week against what I would argue is a pretty weak secondary in the Miami Dolphins. Talking about Morgan Moses, talked about his questionable status. I mentioned that there was an immediate plan, and that is going to be rookie Marcus Bryant at that right tackle position. So the lone offensive player on the quote-unquote injury report in terms of questionable and not playing, Marcus Bryant would fill in at that right tackle position. You want to keep Drake Maye as healthy as possible. I believe Will Campbell is going to have a better week too. I think in some ways a little bit of jitters, and Campbell is very much I'm going to be better. If you heard his post-game interview and the way he talked, he wants to be the best guy out there every day, and I'm excited for it. Talking about Zak Kuhr real quick, kind of the pronunciation down here, kind of like the beer, as Phil Perry says, but he'll be filling in for defensive coordinator Terrell Williams, who is away from the team dealing with a health issue. I want to talk a little bit about Kuhr because it's not as big of a deal as you might think. And that's where we go to the report here from Mark Daniels of Mass Live saying, quote, this spring when Williams was out due to a medical situation, Kuhr stepped in to fill his role on the practice field and in the meeting room. On Friday, defensive players told Mass Live that the situation prepared them for this week, including we go to, this isn't Mark Daniels. This is one of the Patriots players, I believe this is Milton Williams. He said, quote, we're really familiar with him and how he does things. In OTAs, he was calling our defense. When we were in meetings, he was heading our meetings and all that stuff. Yeah, we're really familiar with what he's trying to get accomplished. And for a little more information on Kuhr, he spent 4 seasons in Tennessee working with Vrable and as defensive scheme as a quality control coach, and then as the inside linebackers coach. Last year, he worked with the New York Giants defensive coordinator Shane Bowen. Bowen worked with Vrable in Tennessee, so last year, obviously, Vrable out of the head coaching position, had a role with the Cleveland Browns late in the season, but in terms of Kuhr, he went with Shane Bowen to the New York Giants. This year came to the New England Patriots and has been a really, really key piece for that defensive role. And in theory, I obviously wish the best for Terrell Williams and want him to come back, but just kind of thinking for the team reasons and team ways, if it is a long-term exit for Terrell Williams, if he will be out for a while, you're going to expect Zak Kuhr to fully take over on that defensive side of the ball as the defensive coordinator. Let me know in the comment section for our Patriots question of the day. What's your concern level with Christian Gonzalez missing now week number 2 of the NFL season? Not practicing since July 28th is more concerning. I mean, I didn't expect him to play this weekend after he didn't practice in week 1 and didn't practice in day 1 of week 2. So I'm hoping that we can have him back for next week, but in all reality, I really do wish that we keep him out for as long as necessary so that he can be fully healthy and ready to turn, ready to return for hopefully, maybe a playoff push. We'll see what happens. But either way, I'm not ready to risk anything for this year. Next year, be a different story, hopefully. But for this year, I'm looking at building blocks, and Christian Gonzalez may be one of the biggest pieces in that building block. We appreciate you watching here on Patriots Digest. Again, make sure you're subscribed and tune in for all your Patriots news, information, and rumors. For now, though, we'll see you next time here on Patriots Digest. Peace out, guys.